This is one of their mobile kitchens that they actually...
Is that even some, what I call habitual...
Beautiful Stop and Shop in the Wilton penalty, but it was actually a tax, and that it... Absolutely. What's the name of the show? Good evening and welcome once again to the Marty Heiser Show. Wow, what a difference a year makes. Last November, right about this time, we were dancing in the streets. Donald Trump had pulled up an epic upset, a historic upset. I was down at the Hilton Hotel. I was down there in New York City, and we were wearing our red hats, and we were very happy, and we were driving up the West Side Highway as the sun was coming up. What a night. But this past week, Tuesday night, it was the Democrats that came through big time. And big time here in Connecticut. In my hometown of Ridgefield, Connecticut, I have to have a tip of the hat to the Democratic Party because they swept through. Republicans are holding on by the hair on their chinny chin. In Brookfield, the Democrats swamped them. Clay Coop, the beloved first selectman in Sherman, Connecticut, lost. But Mayor Mark Boughton held on to his seat. And by the way, we should be getting a call from Al Robinson, who's going to give us a chapter and verse. You know Al Robinson, Hat City Blog, a blogger. He always likes to gloat after the Democrats had a big night. They won in Virginia. They won in New Jersey. Now, those are two pretty blue states. But there wasn't any aftermath from Donald Trump, any delayed coattails or anything like that. And certainly in Connecticut, municipal elections statewide, the Democrats had a very, very good night. Tonight we're joined by Matt Corey. Matt, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. Now, you are a beloved member of the Republican Party here in Connecticut. You were out at the convention in Cleveland.
Great time, a lot of fun.
You're the Republican standard bearer. You were the nominee 2 times in the 1st Congressional District to run, and now you're up in your game. You were squirrel hunting before. Now you're going after big game, and you're trying to unseat Senator Murphy a year from tonight, a year approximately from tonight.
That's correct.
You're either going to be victorious or not. What made you want to run for Senate?
Well, look, there hasn't been a Republican congressman in the 1st District since 1958, Edwin May, and he was under the Eisenhower.
Yeah.
And look what a great job he did. He brought the GHO to the Hartford area, the Wethersfield. He's a Wethersfield resident.
Okay.
Just done a lot of great things. In 2 years, he's done more than the rest of these Democratic congressmen done in the last 40 years. So that's just one of the things. But I got into this race because, I own 2 small businesses here in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And I see the same names on the ballot over year after year after year. And it's just, and there's nothing changing. And the job loss is just incredible. Yeah. I had college kids that work for me in my small Irish pub in Hartford, and they're still there 4 years after they graduate with master's degrees, looking for work.
Wow.
I mean, this is just, something's not right. Something is just, if we were in the business of exporting our students and our talent in the state of Connecticut, we'd be #1. Yeah. And so that's why I jumped in the race.
Wow. Well, what do you think? I mean, do you think you bring a unique perspective? I mean, you are sort of a man of the people. I mean, I went over your resume. I did some vast research. A member of the Teamsters, a member of the union. I guess you were in the Navy. You served our country. By the way, thank you for your service. When you say you're a small businessman, an actual high-rise window cleaning service.
28 years.
28 years.
28 years.
Meeting the payroll.
Meeting the payroll every day. I don't have to walk across the state of Connecticut like Senator Murphy has to find out what the problems are in America. Yeah. I've worked across the state for 28 years. There's not a city or town I haven't driven through or worked in or stayed in. I see it every day. I see the despair in the inner cities. And you talk about the apprenticeship program that President Trump wants to bring on. We talked about that in the last 2 campaigns that I worked on. Look, these construction jobs come into the inner cities. They're getting less than 1% 1% of the minority people that live in inner city or inner city people altogether.
Yeah.
They usually require 30%. And there's no reason why these kids can't work on these construction
less than 1%
Less
of
than
the
1%.
people working on those jobs, construction jobs.
Construction jobs.
Okay, so this is skilled labor. This isn't,
skilled labor.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we can't train these kids.
Yeah.
If you look at the ballpark, the debacle in Hartford, if you haven't been to the ballpark, it's absolutely, for the tax money that we paid, it's absolutely a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But they got less than 1% of the people that are working there, working on that construction site.
Wow, wow.
And so, with all the blighted properties in the city of Hartford, there's no reason why we can't get these kids trained in sheetrocking, painting, concrete work, roofing.
Yeah.
So when those jobs do come into the inner city, these kids are trained.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it would be good. It's interesting. I don't know if you have to go down deeper, like as far as the inner city kids and their ability to work. I have a painting service. And I worked with like some Young Life kids. Young Life is a high school Christian group in Bassick High School in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
That's great.
And the work ethic and the ability to show up at work. They say 90% of success is showing up.
Just showing up.
And some of these basic things, I think, you need training in that too. You need, like, don't look to the government for a handout. If you're going to have a job, you got to show up. You got to be ready to work. You can't cop an attitude. I don't know. What about some of those skills?
Well, look, that comes with showing up to work. Showing up with decent apparel. A lot of these kids they come from broken families. Yeah. And the most rewarding part of myself being in the business for 28 years, and it may be window cleaning, and people don't think much of it. I mean, it's a high risk job.
Yeah.
But even basic storefront work, doing the jeweler down the street or the Dunkin' Donuts up the road, teaching these kids a trade. And watching them go out on their own, knowing that if they don't show up for work, somebody else is going to take that job from them. So they may make a few bucks cleaning this storefront, and it's scheduled every 2 weeks or every week. And the day that they miss that guy that's hustling more than they are, that's when they lose that job.
Yeah.
And so that being a business owner yourself. And then something clicks in these kids' heads and they say, wow, I get it now. Yeah. The harder I work, the more I'm going to make. And the reason I got that job is because the other guy didn't show up.
Yeah, I mean, so this is getting off the mark. Just
no, I know.
But it is interesting because some of these kids I've gotten to know fairly good. This is back in like the 90s and the early 2000s where I was doing Young Life in Bassick, at Bassick High School in Bridgeport. But the work ethic is there. It's just maybe put to the wrong use, like the drug trade or some of these other things. They're working hard. They're out there, slinging drugs.
Yeah.
They're hustling.
Unfortunately,
but it's not, for the right reason. But I don't know. I commend you with trying to do that. What do you make of this past election season with the Democrats here, specifically in Connecticut? Because as you look, you're running for statewide office now, and how are you going to overcome the $6 million war chest that Senator Murphy has? And what are your plans?
Well, look, we're hoping to raise some money. It's not easy in a blue state.
Yeah.
It's just we have to have people look at who's actually on the ground, who actually is going to bring stuff home from the federal government. We had a congressman on the other day crying that we only get 83 cents on the dollar that's coming back. Well, whose fault is that? If we have a complete domination of Democrats down in Washington and they're not bringing the money home, then whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Excluding defense contracts. So
which is a big, because we do pretty good with helicopters and submarines, and that's going up with Trump's defense spending too, or at least I thought.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I think we're getting 3 submarines over in Groton. I think Sikorsky's getting some helicopters. I know Pratt & Whitney's going to gain from the strike fighter contract.
Yeah.
But if you look, our congressional delegation will go down there and they'll say, hey, we did this for you, even though that they vote against every increase in defense spending.
Yeah.
But they'll take credit for that.
Yeah, they'll be there for the ribbon cut.
Right. So the thing that Senator Murphy and our congressional delegation didn't do was there was a USS Boise was supposed to come up for rehab, was the dry docks at EB, and they failed to get that contract, and we lost that to Norfolk, Virginia, who builds surface ships. And there's no reason why we couldn't do that. So you can't have it both ways. Why did you lose that contract? How come you lost that contract? Yeah. And then Navy awarded it to Virginia. So you have to take some accountability for that. Was it retribution? I don't know. Can you articulate the issues enough to win that? These guys are all lawyer types. They should be able to do that.
All right. Caller, do you have a question for Matt Corey, Republican candidate for the United States Senate? Go ahead.
Well, I certainly do. He's going to be running against Chris Murphy. Chris Murphy understands the science of global warming. Now, being a Republican, your guest has to be a global warming denier. Otherwise, you can't be a Republican. So I want to know how he's going to square this with Chris Murphy when it comes to denying the fact that the globe is warming.
Okay, thanks for the question. What about that? Global warming.
Climate's always changing. I mean, we had global cooling, global warming. It's how much do humans contribute to that? Ask a farmer if they like CO2. Their crops are great. Look, we're all for renewable energies. And the problem with Senator Murphy is we're losing tech jobs to the Brooklyn Navy shipyards. United Technologies moved a bunch of tech jobs down to New York because it was a better work environment. We're all for renewable energies.
Yeah.
Fossil fuels has to be part of that. You can't destroy all these jobs going to renewable energies. We all want renewable energies. We want these young kids, the millennials, to come up to invent great stuff that we can use that's clean.
Right.
There's not one person that I know in this country that wants to pollute, that wants to create kids to have asthma, to pollute waters like they did in Flint, Michigan. Nobody wants that.
Right.
But fossil fuels has to be part of that equation. You can. Is global warming happening? Sure. Is global cooling happening? Sure. You can argue that back and forth. How much are humans contributing to that? Is it enough? Is it enough to destroy jobs in this country? I mean, look, the energy sector is better than going to war with people over there. Why should we send our Navy into the Straits of Hormuz to guard oils that are coming from Iran and terrorist nations? You want to cripple Russia? Let's do more fracking. Let's do more of that, but let's do it safely. Clean coal is coming. Let the kids invent these technologies. They're there. The ability is there. Let's invest in that to have clean coal technology. It's there. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, would you say that the Republicans in general and the Trump administration is going all out on energy? I mean, fracking, natural gas, becoming energy independent.
How wonderful is that?
I think it's fantastic.
863,000 jobs have been created since he's been there. We're at a 3% growth rate right now. Can you imagine if we added 1% to the GDP? $2.5 trillion goes back into to revenues to the IRS. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
We need jobs. This is number one. Need jobs. Nobody wants to pollute. There's not one energy company that wants to pollute this earth. There's not one. Look, let fossil fuels be part of that equation. Let them fund the green energy concept. Let's not force government to force this down on people. We're reducing regulations as he's speaking right now. For every new regulation, they have to get rid of 2 older regulations. Basically, regulations is at a standstill. That costs the economy billions and billions of dollars and jobs on top of it. Just look here in the state of Connecticut, the regulations. They're overlapping. It's
considered one of the most business unfriendly states in the country. Right. But caller, do you have a follow-up question?
Marty?
Yes.
This guy just proved why he's not going to be elected senator. If he's foolish enough to think that there is such a thing as clean coal, it proves that he knows absolutely nothing about what he's talking about.
Okay.
And the fact that he's defending fossil fuel does nothing but prove that he's a Republican that wants to protect the interests of the fossil fuel companies instead of going renewable. And if he had half a brain, he would understand that the majority of the jobs created in the country are being created in the solar industry and the wind industry. And he doesn't understand this, but he wants to run for senator.
Okay.
Do us all a favor, wave goodbye to the camera and say, guys, I don't know enough about science to be a senator. I bow out of the race right now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. Well, you've laid a lot down. Thank you for the call. What about that? Are all the energy jobs in solar and windmill production?
Ask him how much government is subsidizing that at taxpayers.
Yes, Solyndra comes to mind.
Exactly.
Went out of business once the money from the.
So this gentleman here is for kickbacks to politicians that want to take care of big solar companies that go out of business, and most of that stuff is bought in China. So those are the ones that are creating the most of the panels. So let's outsource more jobs to China.
Yeah.
America first. America first, and we can get it done here in America.
Okay, well, let me ask you. I mean, it's interesting because sometimes they describe Austin, Texas, as the blueberry in the tomato sauce. I think maybe even just me and you are the only conservative guys really left in the state of Connecticut, especially when you look at the election that just happened just this past week. I mean, I think we held New Britain and Mark Boughton, but my goodness, there was a backlash. I guess it was a backlash because of Donald Trump or what have you, but this message, this pro-growth message, when you say, I'm in favor of Donald Trump, I'm happy that 1.5 million of my fellow residents are off food stamps since he's come in.
Imagine that.
I'm happy that we're at 3% GDP growth across the country and we didn't sniff 2% for 8 years under Obama. I'm happy about when he goes over to China, even right now, and he lays down the law with a rogue nation like North Korea instead of putting a red line in the sand and then backing off and having Syria gas people. Trump sees it, he takes out a quarter of their Air Force. You don't hear a peep out of them anymore. I like that, peace through strength. But in this state, you can't say that in polite company. You can't. So how are you going to get elected if you have these views, which I think are the right views? I'm voting for you.
Look, Marty, all you have to do is look at the outflux of jobs. Hartford just made the list, along with Norfolk, Virginia, of outsourcing of jobs. Businesses are leaving. They're leaving. Connecticut was the #1 state, and as small as we are, in manufacturing for many, many years. Yeah. Now we're a service state. That's it, service. Most of the job growth is in the restaurant business. How sad is that?
We're selling cheeseburgers to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. So how are you going to bring that back? You're going to adapt Governor Malloy's policies are the same policies our federal elected officials want to bring on the federal level. That's what's happening. We're losing companies overseas. Repatriation of this money, coming back, lowering the corporate tax rate to 20%. All those talking heads, they're going to keep talking and say this is a tax cut for the rich. No, this is a tax cut for the middle class. And they're going to say Matt's still talking the Republican talking points. Well, I can tell you something. Connecticut is, if Connecticut and what the Democrats' playbook was, why aren't we a #1 growth state? Why are we losing our youth? Why does it cost so much to live in the state of Connecticut if their way of doing things are right? So you need somebody to articulate that and make people aware of it, because the inner cities are suffering the most.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're preaching to the choir here. I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right as far as all that goes. But I just don't know if people are buying what we're selling. You know, I just don't know.
Look at their pocketbooks. I mean, look at the taxes on your house.
Yeah.
I mean, this budget came through just in time for the election. Yeah. Just in time for the election.
Caller, are you there? Do you have a question for Matt Corey, candidate for the United States Senate?
Marty, you really need a better call screener. That last guy that called in is just missing half a brain. I'm just telling you. I mean, clean coal in the U.S. with the scrubbers that we have produces some of the cleanest energy in America. I'd put a coal-fired plant in my backyard any day of the week. And the other thing I don't get is, I mean, here's a guy like Rich, living off the government. And there's a guy down in West Virginia that's just trying to work for a living and feed his family. And Rich is sitting there in his arrogance trying to convince the world that somehow or other man is contributing to global warming and coal's playing a role. It's arrogant. It's a typical Democrat. I want to live everybody else's life for him and tell him what to do. Get a better call screener, Marty.
All right. Well, there you have it.
He's absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, I need a better call screener?
No.
I just answered and put it on my cell phone.
But
I am the call screener.
Is he not worried
multitasking.
Right. Is he not worried about those poor families that are losing their jobs down in West Virginia? Yeah. I mean, these people just want to work. You talk about people that, hey, people don't want to work. These people want to work. Marty.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you allocate them and give them a job, feel proud to be an American, and say, look, I'm contributing to society. I want to do this. No, we're gonna give you we'll pay for your school, and we're gonna relocate you. We'll try to reintroduce you to more work or different job. These people have been coal mining for hundreds of years. Coal mining for hundreds of years, and they want safety. OSHA came down there. They want that safety. Look, nobody wants to pollute, Marty. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I agree. How's it look out there? Do you had to win the primary to become the nominee? Are there other candidates out there? When you talk to people, when people come into your restaurant, when you in your travels around the state, what are people saying? Really, I mean, we really got a taste, a temperature of the state this last election. It didn't seem like they were overwhelmingly coming to the Republican side. It seemed like there was a little backlash going on out there.
Look, local elections are local issues.
Okay.
If the Democrats want to take this as they want to take it on Donald Trump and say this is a repudiation of Donald Trump, then let them win that. That's their narrative.
Yeah.
Look, whether you're a Democrat on a town council or a Republican on a town council or a first selectman, there's only two ways to go. Either you're going to keep your mill rate flat or you're going to raise taxes. What's it going to be? What's it going to be? So you're accountable to your town. So don't always want what you wish for, because sometimes it comes true. And then when you take the reins of something, and like you just said, Clay Cope or a couple of these other first selectmen in Trumbull, like Tim Herbst, they kept their town taxes flat. They did a good job for their city and town. So what are you going to do? You're going to go in there and say, hey, we're going to change something? People see, they know what's going on. So look, you won an election. God bless you. Keep going. Let's see what you can do with your city and town. That's what we need to look at.
When you talk to people and you go around, do you talk about taxes? You talk about jobs? Are these things that people are resonating with? I mean, when you talk about taxes, sometimes it's the two things, healthcare and taxes. I know they're big issues, but right now they're putting together a tax bill and they're talking about this rate and that rate and deductibles, and I don't know, maybe I'm just not that intelligent a guy, but my eyes just kind of glass over, and they don't decide on anything, and they don't just, all I know is that on the healthcare front, my premiums went from $700 a month to $2,700 a month, and my deductible went from $1,000 deductible to a $10,000 deductible, and then I got a letter from Oxford Health Plan with a $700 check in it, and I'm thinking, well, that's good. Someone sent me a check. They said, oh, you've been canceled. We're discontinuing it. Even after like totally raising the prices and everything, I still get a letter saying you get canceled. We didn't have any claims. We didn't have any, pre-existing conditions or whatever. They just dropped us. They're out of the business. So how do you make that a kitchen table issue for potential voters that you say?
Like you, and it happened to me. Our deductible went from $2,500 to $4,500. I mean, I'm speaking to a lot of people out there saying, I can't afford the insurance. I get kids that work for me that want to do the right thing. They say, Matt, I'm trying to do the right thing, but by the time I use my deductible, it's not even worth for me to buy it, so I'll just pay the penalty. So I mean, this is where we're at. So yeah, it's a huge issue. Look, nobody wants to kick anybody off with pre-existing conditions. I said in the last campaign, take the best of Medicaid, what state is running that correctly, put people into a high-risk pool, like they do with me, because I'm a high-rise window cleaner. There's no negotiating my insurance.
Yeah, workers' comp must be pretty expensive.
It's $10,000 on every 50,000 payroll, so I'm right up there. So, but that's what you do. Why destroy the whole industry? And so what Donald Trump did, President Trump, he said, look, small businesses like you and I can group together like big corporations and buy insurance across state lines. How wonderful is that? Who is that hurting and who is that helping? So, I mean, yeah, that's a huge issue. Taxes are another issue. I think there's 3 billion hours a year wasted on compliance tax. You're a small business guy. Have you ever, and I don't care if you're not, how many times that you filed your taxes and ever felt comfortable like, I did this right. I took the right deductibles. I mean, my God, just doing your business taxes alone takes so many hours. I can't even enjoy the place. because I'm sitting behind the desk with my accountant trying to figure things out.
Yeah,
and so this is hurting small businesses. Yeah. So I think we need to reduce the paperwork on taxes, especially for small business. Yeah. We're the job creators, you know?
Yeah,
so.
no, I agree completely. All right, we're going to be going to our round table now. Can you stay with us?
Definitely.
I know you should be out, like, saving the world and putting out fires in an orphanage or something like that. Good, but we're going to be joined in just a minute by Bob Moran. Now, if that name rings a bell, Bob Moran is a great friend of the show, and he's been on many times. He's an IT expert, and also for all of you living in Reading, Connecticut, he also does work down there. He videotapes some of the Board of Finance meeting, the Board of Selectmen meeting, and so forth. He's just an all-around great guy. He has some association with Navy Special Forces as well, which is wonderful. He's a true patriot. And in contrast to that, we have Dave Streit, who's with us, a right-wing Neanderthal who believes in clean coal and has some association with Bentley University, which you'll see in just a minute. But
you finally have an intelligent caller call in and you bake them. I mean, what is it?
But anyways, thanks for joining us, Dave and Bob. Dave, you also have something loaded up for us, some things that we might have missed in current events. What are we looking for?
Some of this stuff is a little bit, thank you, some of this stuff is a little bit out in left field, so I'll save that. But, bring it closer to home in Connecticut. We have an epidemic with opiate addiction.
Yeah.
And heroin addiction, and it's not getting any better. So here's my pop quiz for today. You always like pop quizzes, right, Marty?
I do. I love pop quizzes.
How many people in America died last year from a drug overdose?
Oh, man.
Wow. I did hear one statistic talk about bringing it to home. Something like 2 a day in Waterbury are dying from drug overdoses.
I think like 50,000.
Can you imagine?
We lost 30 to 50,000.
Lost, I think, 550.
What is
so 64,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Last year, 64,000 people died.
Wow. That's
How
like,
come you're not hearing about that
That's
number?
like 2 Vietnams
you know what I mean?
every year.
Someone gets shot with a gun, and by golly, we're going to get rid of guns. 64,000 people are dying, and nobody's really doing anything about it. What's kind of interesting, too, is the family that that invented OxyContin. They're worth $13 billion now, and how come they're not getting sued?
Yeah.
Where's the personal liability there? Those drugs are just being pumped and pumped and pumped into our society, and those states that have expanded their Medicaid rolls and Medicare rolls are seeing what? An explosion in addiction, because people can get that OxyContin for $5 and go and sell it on the street for $1,000.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Bad deal.
But that was something that Trump did talk about during his campaign, and it seems like he's trying to address it, especially in New Hampshire.
He is so far ahead of people, I can't get over it. Yeah. He's proven to be one of the greatest presidents. He's making Ronald Reagan look like an amateur in a lot of ways. That's my opinion anyway. But let's touch.
I'll get you. You have another opinion, but go ahead.
When I look at a great president, I look at somebody like Teddy Roosevelt. Learned, articulate, visionary. What I see in Donald is I don't see any of those characteristics. I see a patriot. I see a guy who loves his country without question. But I question his judgment. I really do.
Can you give me like 2 examples of something that he's done?
Looking backward in technology.
In technology?
Yes.
I thought he's like the king of tweets.
No, the king of queens. What's happening with solar and wind? And what's happening with nuclear? When we pull out of the Paris Accords, it's not because it was a type of accord that was wonderful. It was access to markets. And the fastest growing technological space is wind and solar. And the minute the solar starts to become flexible.
But it's only because of government subsidies. Should the government be subsidizing Tesla buyers to the tune of $7,000? Answer, no. You're right, no. So why? The government has got to get out of subsidizing wind and power. Right. It's not romantic. It doesn't cure anything.
Oil is also subsidized. Let's get real here. The energy industry is subsidized.
Okay.
So let's cut to the chase here.
I think it's taxed.
When you're looking at the cost of per kilowatt hour of solar has dropped like almost 80% in the past 5 years. And you're going to see a continued acceleration once you start getting into very soft technologies that can be fitted onto a roof, can be fitted onto a window. So you're going to start seeing form factors that you have not seen before. For instance, let's say David wants to put solar in his house, okay? he's going to have heavy glass panels with the silicon wafers inside these panels. Now imagine if you could take that and replace it with, I'm going to get rid of my shingles and I'm going to have a solar roof.
I've seen those.
And you're going to see this more and more because the technology is getting cheaper and the efficiency is getting better. And one of the faults that I find with Trump is you have to look forward. Look what's happening with China. In my opinion, and I'm not in love with China, but they have a strategic vision. They know where they want to go. They're creating the old Silk Road. They're working with Russia in terms of like consolidating the natural resources. They have a vision. I don't see a vision in this country. I don't see a technological vision.
What are your thoughts?
I think we have a technological vision, that's for sure. And he's over there. He's over there with the fair trade agreement with China. You look at the intellectual property that's being stolen from China. That's a huge issue, and I think he's fighting for that. And that you should be on board with that. Yeah, look, the Western Hemisphere is one of the most powerful hemispheres. We can make it that way. If we go from South America up to North America and make this a place to do business, we don't have to worry about border crossings. If we make from Venezuela on up, the problem is we have socialist countries down there, but if we can convert
You're talking about NAFTA too, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and Trump came out against that.
Right, well, he's cutting deals. He says either this deal is going to be better or we're going to get rid of it. And why wouldn't you? America first. It doesn't mean we still can't work with these people. So why are we working with our enemies in China?
There's a manufacturing renaissance in this country right now, and that's just the way it is. In the last year, there have been effectively no new regulations that have been put on businesses. That's the job killer, and it's cheap natural gas prices, not wind, solar, or any of the above, that's causing the U.S. to be at the epicenter of manufacturing once again because we have the cheapest source of energy. Natural gas is the driving force. Fracking is the driving force. Coal is the driving force. Water, hydropower is the driving force. I mean, and oil is just a little bit more expensive. So if you look at the power stack in terms of what it costs to produce energy, you kind of start with hydro, then you go to natural gas, then you go to oil, and then you jump up to here to solar and up to here for wind. Wind is the worst form of renewable energy you can ever get.
It does kill a lot of birds.
It's interruptible, it's unreliable. You can't use it in peak periods because you may not have wind.
Kennedys won't let you put windmills off Hyannis.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
It's true. I think that's
I know.
true.
I know that.
And those solar panels that they're building out in the desert,
I agree with you about that.
they're cooking thousands of birds a day. All the bird has to do is fly over, and it's like 180 degrees. Bam! They're dropping left and right.
Caller, do you have something germane to the issue at hand?
Marty, I want to talk about windmills with Dave and what Elon Musk has done in Australia. He said, I will take a wind farm and I will make sure that that wind farm gives you wind energy 24 hours a day with battery backup, and I'll do it for free.
Yeah, he's going to blow on it with this hot air.
If I can't. But Dave doesn't want to understand that. But Marty, more importantly, at the beginning of the show, Dave talked about opiate addiction. And I wanted my last show, the show that I did yesterday, was on kratom. And I want to know if you guys are familiar with kratom. It's a natural leaf drug that right now the FDA wants to turn into a Schedule 1, but it's been known to help people that are addicted and that are using morphine every day. So now you're replacing the morphine with a leafy substance that is non-addictive, and the FDA wants to make it a Schedule 1 drug.
All right.
Dave, if you're concerned about opiate addiction, watch my show number 194, and it's called...
Okay. All right, good point.
Rich, if I'm having trouble falling asleep, I'll watch your show. Go ahead. What was that?
He's talking about opioid addiction, and there's a special type of drug that's, had good results.
How can that be a bad thing?
It's a good thing.
Okay, so can we pivot for a second?
Absolutely.
Things that are hot in the news right now. These Judge Moore allegations have just come out today. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm losing track. It started with Harvey Weinstein. Then we're not having Homeland anymore. Then I'm sure I'm missing some, sexual degenerates before. Now this guy, the Republican nominee for Senate in Georgia, there's a girl who said 20 years ago when she was in Alabama, that when she was 14, he exposed himself to her and so forth. And then I understand there are 4 or 5 other victims that have gone on record. 3 others.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound good to me. It doesn't sound good to me. You know what? I countered that always with the Duke lacrosse thing and the Virginia fraternity where there were false claims
How
that
about
went
Trump
on.
and Russia? How about Fusion 1? How about the dossier that was trumped up, no pun intended?
Well, I mean, we're talking about 2 different things.
No, I know, but it reeks the same way because.
So you think this is like a political hit job, potentially?
So you got to balance that, and you got to say, well, what if it was a Democrat that it was being alleged? What would our response be? Here's what strikes me about this: you've got 4. This was clearly a financed piece because you've got 4 people that don't know each other. How did the Washington Post find 4 people that don't know each other that are somehow going to allege somewhat similar a situation? Where do these people come from? The only way you find those people would be if you ran ads in the paper, right?
Yeah, well, let me turn it around. What about Bill Clinton and some of the women that that Trump brought to those debates that had accused him of sexual assaults through the years?
It was all pretty current, huh?
I don't know if it's current or not.
Monica Lewinsky, they had the dress, Marty.
Well, Monica Lewinsky,
I kind of does.
I agree.
I mean,
I agree with you. I mean, like one person.
I'm not sure what I'm thinking, but I'm glad you're agreeing with me.
You have, with the technology that's out there, you see the news like this.
Yeah.
So if one person comes forth and says accusation, and somebody reads it in Facebook or reads it in Tumblr or reads it in the New York Times, and they say, I was victimized too. Look what happened with Harvey. One person comes out, and all of a sudden,
Bill Cosby,
40 people come out and say this guy's was a predator. Same way with Bill Cosby. Same way with the various people in positions
Here's
of
the
power.
problem. No sources. There are no sources in this.
Right.
No sources.
No, there is, though. There's 4 that have come out
but they haven't
on the record.
Yes, they have.
Okay, and have they done background checks on these 4 individuals?
I don't know that part, but these aren't anonymous claims.
Well, they're not anonymous.
But if this happened, it's a tragedy. If this happened to these young women, it's a tragedy. If it didn't happen, and it's a hit job, that's a tragedy for the American politics, and politics in this country are getting so low.
Yeah.
It's just horrible.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it is bad because I saw a documentary on the Duke lacrosse team and what those kids went through and what they was claimed. And it was all this DA that was running for re-election. Same thing with the Virginia fraternity. Some lady claimed that she was gang raped, and what was it? The Rolling Stones ran with it, got a Pulitzer Prize or whatever they got.
That was
and
all
there was
wrong.
nothing there.
All bogus.
And even today there were bogus claims of racism, and it was actually on the TV show The Five on Fox. They went through like a dozen headlines that turned out not to be true. Oh, this was the U.S. Air Force Academy, where they claimed that there was racist, bigotry there, and it turned out that the person that was claiming it was a hoax.
But you have to understand that news is no longer news in this country. News is selling ads. It's making money. Like the movie Network.
Or it's character destruction.
When Patty Chayefsky wrote the script for Network, he was prescient. And he talked about news as being a money-making venture. And so what we have in this country is an advertising revenue to make money.
Yeah.
So the various news publications, whether it's Fox or CNBC or any of the other organs, they set this up in a political space that the viewers that have the same political views will watch this channel.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about what we were just talking about
Absolutely.
sexual assault. and the news networks. Then you got like Bill O'Reilly and Eric Bohl,
Yes.
and then the head of Fox.
Yeah.
But then you got on Morning Joe there was
Right.
some guy that he also got fired and let go because there was some hanky-panky going on there too. And
so people want to see things where the person is worse off than the person who's watching the show.
Well,
It's all about the money. It's all about the money.
Oh, George H.W. Bush.
George Senior.
Yeah, who's your favorite magician?
Yeah.
David Copperfield. You can't make this stuff up. But I understand when you get extremely old, not like any of us here, but that sometimes there's it happens when you're like really.
Well, try hugging someone from your wheelchair.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he's a World War II hero. He's a great president. I give him a pass. But what are your thoughts? You're jumping right into this cesspool, trying to get elected.
Right.
I mean, as far as the politics of it, and how do you deal with that? You rise above. You know, I mean, what?
You have
what do you
to.
do?
I mean, look, you have to stand for something. You know, we understand what our politicians here and our two senators stand against. You know, it's you send people to Washington to run on policy.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody goes to work and likes who they work with. I make you attest to that. You're a contractor. There's plenty of construction supers I don't like. But look, you don't have to like the president personally. But his policies are showing America that we can do better.
Yeah.
And so if you have something better than the president's, what he's putting out there, then show it.
Yeah.
Don't attack him personally. You don't have to like the guy.
That's my read of the situation. I think that his personality and the way he comes across is so abrasive and so in your face and so politically incorrect that there's a large portion of the electorate that are just turned off by it and they can't get past it.
I can see that.
But all of a sudden you take a step back and the economy's growing. Wall Street's at an all-time high. Regulations are coming down.
401ks,
401ks.
5 trillion.
1.5 million of our fellow citizens. This food stamp thing just bugs me. When that roll kept growing and growing and growing under Obama, and it was like, oh, the Democrats are taking care of the needy. No, they're trying to create a dependent class that'll vote for Democrat. That's the gist here. And now that they're coming off food stamp rolls, to me, this is all really good. And if you got to deal with some unhappy tweets or the fact that he goes to war with journalists or whatever, I'm okay with it. I find it mildly
Work with him.
Yeah,
Work with him.
that's my sense of it. What do you see as the big issues? How could this gentleman get elected to the United States Senate when he's going up against Senator Murphy, a juggernaut, $6 million in the bank?
I would like to see politicians say, talk about the truth, the real truth. Like I would like to see a person running for president say, hey, if I'm in for one term, I'm going to be in for one term, but these are the things that I stand for. When's the last time we've had a president articulate a vision, a real vision? Who are we? Where are we? Where are we going? What do we stand for? Eisenhower, to me, was a terrific president. He was economically very, very sound. He cut the defense budget by 45%.
Did he really?
Yes. And he was an excellent, excellent president. And TR was an excellent president. Mm-hmm. I look at JFK as a visionary. Different party, different space.
He wanted to cut taxes, and he did.
Yeah.
And the economy grew.
And he had a vision. He laid out, he invented the computer industry when he said, we're going to put a man on the moon.
I thought that was Al Gore.
Technology really started with the mission toward the moon, to make systems small enough to be able to carry, to be portable.
JFK did.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd like to see politicians just lay it out. This is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm looking for in a politician. I'm looking for a politician that says, if I get elected, I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm not going to get along with anybody. And I'm definitely not going to get along with the other party. Because every time Republicans run on a platform where they're going to get along with the other party,
right,
a couple things happen. One, my taxes go up, regulations go up, and spending skyrockets.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you go along with the other party in Washington. So if you said, I'm going to go to Washington and I'm not going to go along with the other party, I'd say you got my vote.
Well, Donald Trump is not only not getting along with the other party, he's not getting along with his party. He's not getting along with journalists. He's not getting along with actors. He's not getting along with people in his cabinet, he's not getting along with anyone. I mean, he's really like, I mean, imagine me and Jeff Sessions, you know, imagine me and the Secretary
He
of
has
State.
it coming, though.
Fine. I'm just saying. Okay, you've been on construction site.
Right.
This guy is a New York City ball buster.
Right.
But to your point, here is JFK talking about taxes.
Take the proper action in the proper time. This can be the most important step we could take to prevent another recession. That is the right kind of a tax cut, both for your family budget and the national budget, resulting from a permanent basic reform and reduction in our rate structure. A creative tax cut, creating more jobs and income, and eventually more revenue. And the right time for that kind of bill, it now appears, in the absence of an economic crisis today, and if the job is to be done in a responsible way, is January 1963. Such a bill will be presented to the Congress for action next year. It will include an across-the-board, top-to-bottom cut in both corporate and personal income taxes. It will include long-needed tax reforms that logic and equity demand. And it will date that cut in taxes to take effect as of the start of next year, January 1963. The billions of dollars this bill will place in the hands of the consumer and our businessmen will have both immediate and permanent benefits to our economy. Every dollar released from taxation that is spent or invested will help create a new job and a new salary. And these new jobs and new salaries can create other jobs and other salaries, and more customers and more growth for an expanding American economy. Instead of being permanently saddled with excess planned capacity and the budgetary deficit that is created by this means, our goal must be fuller capacity and full employment and the budgetary surpluses that kind of employment and capacity can produce.
Well, now for my liberal friends out there, just watch that. Because I know anytime you see JFK, it makes you break out in a warm sense of complete fuzzies. I was going to do, fuzzies. We'll go with fuzzies. But just watch that. Don't listen to Donald Trump, because I know you have a visceral reaction to Donald Trump. He's a monster. It's a monster. I understand that. I've seen you screaming on TV, and I know a year ago tonight was a bad night for you. I've seen the whole thing. Just watch. Just think JFK, because to your point, it's the same policy.
The only time
thing.
Our congressional delegation's worried about the deficit is when there's a tax cut. They're never worried about the deficit when they want to spend. Imagine that.
That's true. Yeah.
You know what people don't talk about is right after he gave that speech and they went off the air, the first thing he said is, "Where's Marilyn? Is she in the Oval Office right now? Where is she?"
See, why do you got to bring the show down like that? Why? I mean, we're talking about John F. Kennedy. He should be on Mount Rushmore. But am I right though? If he's not saying what another president who's in office today who will not be mentioned is saying? It's the same thing.
If you read any history about TR, for instance, fascinating. He read a book a day. He was a speed reader.
He was a dictator.
Teddy Roosevelt was not a dictator.
He was a dictator. Where'd the national parks come from?
Well, he
confiscated state land.
Well, he preserved he preserved wonderful expanses of the West for future generations.
That's right.
Including
something the states
I agree with Marty.
I love.
I agree with
that, Marty.
Turn over to the states.
Absolutely.
At this point, you should turn them back over to the states.
100%.
But what were you saying? I think we were agreeing. We were kind of going.
Yeah.
I
mean, what I liked about TR, he knew how to instill fear in fellow politicians.
Yeah.
He knew how to work the system. Obama never knew how to work the system.
Yeah.
W actually could work the system. But you have to have that bully pulpit, the ability to be able to articulate and galvanize people to say, what is this guy talking about? Is he worth listening to? We haven't had a president in so long. Is it worth listening to? Reagan was a consummate communicator, consummate actor, the ability to be able to project
Yeah.
We haven't had that in a long,
And
long
Reagan
time.
could have Tip O'Neill, who was the head of the Congress at the time.
Yeah.
He would come into the Oval Office, and these two big burly Irishmen would hammer something out, and then Tip O'Neill would go out to the cameras and say, he's a terrible Neanderthal, he's going to be a bad person, but by gosh, they would get in together, and they would have tax reform, they would have all different kinds of legislation.
Look at JFK. Look at JFK's connect he had with Khrushchev.
Yeah.
In terms of the missiles of October, they had a very warm relationship with
like
Khrushchev, and he did snail mail with Khrushchev, and he gave Khrushchev an out.
Yeah.
He gave him an out and said, "I'm going to allow you to have your dignity. We'll take the missiles out of Turkey. You take the missiles out of Cuba." I mean, this is statesmanship. Right. And the thing is, he learned from Eisenhower, because he talked to Eisenhower after the Bay of Pigs fiasco.
You're right.
And he sat down with Eisenhower, and Eisenhower asked him, I said, did you have the people sit around a table and share the ideas, the special interests? Did you have them talk at once? And he said, no. And Kennedy was humble enough to say, I don't know, I did not do that. Yeah. After that, he got his act together as president.
So he kind of blew it on the Bay of Pigs, but he was humble enough to go to Eisenhower,
exactly. He went to Eisenhower,
learned his lesson,
he flew,
and then 23 days in October.
Sat down with this guy and said, I need some advice from you. You were a general, you managed hundreds of thousands of people. How did you do it?
And I mean, to the benefit that we didn't have...
This takes humility and it takes courage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, and you don't see that in the current president, is what you're saying?
I see a guy who's... There's one part of me that likes Trump, that actually likes Trump.
Yeah.
And there's another part that's like, he's a horse's ass. And in terms of getting along with people, there's a way of how you get along with people. Yeah. Like Tip O'Neill and Reagan.
Yeah.
They got along. We can make a deal. We can talk. And Trump needs to know how to do this. If you're a deal maker, you sit down and you make deals. The problem is we have political operatives in this country who are inept and corrupt. And so it's really hard to try to make deals with people that are incompetent.
I'm just telling you,
my
point to you, friend to friend, give the guy a chance. Because I'll tell you two big things, like with China, where he is tonight. He had his granddaughter sing a song in Mandarin and played it for the premier of China in his own language. That's cool. That's good.
Very cool.
And he had that same premier in China over to Mar-a-Lago, played some golf with him and gave him chocolate cake when he's bombing Syria. And he comes back to the table and said, yeah, I just dropped a load of bombs on Syria because they were gassing their kids with
This is the best relationship we've had with China since Richard Nixon.
They had two United Nations Security Council votes, two that were unanimous. I don't think Obama had any in his entire time. China and Russia came along denouncing North Korea. These are real
South Koreans love them over there.
South Koreans love them. The Chinese, I mean, and the First Lady is easy on the eyes. I mean, she's really good.
She knows how to dress well.
She does. I'm just telling you, that counts for something.
Exquisite.
It's like the daily fashion show.
But I'm just saying, but sometimes I think the other side is so blinded by their rage for Trump.
Jealousy.
So blinded that they don't see a lot of the good stuff that's unfolding. Domestic economy, as far as that goes, what's going on internationally, the way, for once, we're taking North Korea seriously and really, power on power, staring them down.
Here's the question. If he can gain enough power in terms of doing this, maybe he can change our foreign policy, which has been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster.
Well, I don't think he's in the nation. I don't think he's in the nation building. I think, like in Syria, we didn't get sucked into Syria, but look at ISIS. We don't got boots on the ground there, but we're kicking in their ass.
Well,
we were involved in 7 wars in the last administration. 7 wars.
I tell people, you want to learn about the Middle East, read the 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence. And you will understand why we shouldn't be there. And that's cost $5 to $6 trillion spent. 4 countries destroyed, an immigration problem from hell in Europe. And it's like, it didn't have to happen.
Okay, but to Trump's credit, since he's come in, we haven't expanded that. We haven't done nation building.
I agree.
But we've worked with the Kurds and some of these other guys. We're providing the technology, some of this behind-the-scenes special forces, and it's working. ISIS is getting decimated.
Winning.
We got to learn from you. You have a tie on. You must know what you're talking
I agree with
about.
you on that.
What about all that? How does it translate into Connecticut politics? Getting you elected to the United States Senate. What are we going to do?
Foreign policy is big. Look, we don't want to send our military men and women over there fighting for.
And you're a veteran of the United States Navy.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Look, there needs to be, I believe, a three-state solution in Iraq. I don't know how that's going to come about. We have to put some squeeze on Turkey because they don't like the Kurds so close to the border, neither do the Syrians. Yeah. That has to be a factor in it. You got the Sunnis and Shiites fighting. But look, they have to win their own wars. I think what our military men and women are doing are just wonderful, training these people to fight their own battles.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be nation building. We've been over there for 16 years now. I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think we can desert, though. We cannot just pack up and leave. What are we going to have? It's a hellhole now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you got to put the decimation of ISIS since Trump has been in office in the win column. You know about rules of engagement, right?
And how wonderful is that he took the rules of engagement out of the politicians' hands and left it to the generals on the ground.
Yeah.
The military appreciates that.
Yeah, like
that is a big deal.
The Secretary of Defense, Mattis, they love him, and he's like, I love those questions like with 60 Minutes with their hands ringing, what keeps you awake at night? Right. And Secretary Mattis says, I don't stay awake at night, I keep other people awake at night. I'm like, that's what I want.
Marine Corps birthday's tomorrow, so that's.
I think one of the things that he's doing, which is interesting, is I think he's doing very quiet communication with Putin.
Who?
And Putin.
Trump
in terms
is?
of military and Syria and all the rest, because that could turn into a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to see a change in terms of how we deal with Russia, because the Democrats have just demonized Russia. And
it's
unbelievable.
They caused Hillary Clinton to lose the election. We all know that.
No,
it was hacked. It was collusion.
If you do any research, you'll find out that the Russians never hacked the DNC. That was an inside job.
I don't know. As a liberal Democrat, you can't say that. Or
I'm a registered Democrat, and I can say that.
I know. Well, but that's been the whole reason Mueller's there and everything else. This dossier, about the shenanigans and the. Okay, lightning round.
Well,
Give me some lightning round.
This is a shout out to Tony, and I'm trying not to talk too much tonight. You know
no, you're doing fine. Lightning round.
Well, okay, so here it is. 500 years ago today, 500 years ago, October 31st, I should say, Martin Luther King nailed the 95 Theses on the wall over in the Holy See, right?
Right.
I contend that is exactly what Donald Trump has done. In essence, he has started the new revolution 500 years later
Protestant
without firing
revolution.
a shot.
Yeah.
And he's one of the great visionaries, and he's taking the country where it needs to go.
Wow. All right. Good thought. Lightning round, your thoughts?
I think that we're entering an age of technology of great promise and great fear. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about robotics. We're talking about a whole way of conducting business on this planet. We need to protect the environment. We need to do this before it's too late, without question. I think that's what I'm looking at. The environment is an existential situation. I think Trump wants to do the right thing. I'm neutral about him. I'm neither negative or positive. I'm neutral about him. I'm going to wait and see.
All right. Fair enough. And you got your hat in the ring. So for a minute and a half, look into whatever camera has a red light on and tell people why they should vote for you.
Well, look, I'm a small business guy. I'm a union guy. I was a Teamster at one point, laborers union. I understand what it is to create a job and make a payroll. I understand what it is to work for a living and what it is to hire people and train people and get them to work. And that's what we need. We need people that are going to Washington to work with other people down there, find common ground, not compromise your values, find common ground in Washington, and not take it personal. You need to argue policy, and I believe I'm the right guy to do that. Like I said, I don't have to walk across the state to figure out what the problems are in America. I work at 28 years, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. There's not a city or city that I haven't worked in or a town that I haven't worked in the state of Connecticut. From Bridgeport to Waterbury to Wallingford to Torrington to New Haven. I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen the decimation. We need to bring federal funds back home to Connecticut, and we need to give these kids an opportunity to get a job and to work and a dignity of a job. I think I'm the guy to do it.
So how, if people want to get in touch with you, I just Googled you, Matt Corey, Connecticut, a bunch of stuff came up, but how can people get in touch with you?
CoreyForSenate.com.
CoreyForSenate.com.
Corey for Senate. That's COREY. CoreyForSenate.com.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. Bob, you're the man. Dave, you talk too much. You're good. You're good.
Man.
Thanks so much. Now, next week, Dave Streit will be hosting the show.
In the house.
You will be in the house. So what are you going to have? You're going to have
probably Al Alper.
Al Alper.
Larry the Liberal.
Larry the Liberal. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my
Be an
God.
all-star team.
The following week is Thanksgiving, so we'll have a rerun. And after that, we have the Mental Health Band. Yes, you heard right, the Mental Health Band, as well as a guy with a lot of pictures from Moran and some groups from Walnut Hill Community Church. So we'll see you next time. Good night.